good morning and welcome back to CityLine. You're not going to guess who I have next to me. We're talking about dogs, water, paddle boards. Did you get it yet? If you didn't, I'll tell you who it is. It is the Deputy Director of Communities for a Healthy Bay here in Tacoma, Erin Dilworth. Welcome, my dear.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Yes, so speaking of bays and paddle boards and dogs, you know, that's what we do in our healthy communities here. So tell us, speaking of Communities for a Healthy Bay, how did it get started all those years ago?
Yeah, so Communities for a Healthy Bay, or CHB,
Yep.
got started in 1990 really as a response to the contamination that we see in Commencement Bay.
Yeah.
There are community members that felt like the decisions that were being made around the cleanup weren't being made transparent to the public. They didn't know if it was safe or not. And so CHB really formed as a watchdog group for the cleanup that was happening in Commencement Bay. We still do that work today. We still kind of watch over and advocate for quick and safe cleanups of contaminated sites. We have a Bay Patrol program. We do adult and youth education, and we do policy work, especially around land use and climate change.
Wow. So, and as we're going to call it CHB from this point on, CHB's Deputy Director, tell us about your role. Is your role to manage all that, or to bring in really amazing people and then let them go and do what they do best?
Yeah, so my role as the Deputy Director is I run our policy and technical programs. So I review and analyze permits, proposals, projects, anything that's going to have an impact on environmental or public health. I'm reviewing those documents and making recommendations to ensure that our people and our environment are being protected. Yeah.
Which is huge. I mean, and when we think about the bay, or we think about this beautiful water that we have been gifted to steward, that water travels everywhere. Yeah. So, Erin, it's not, you're just not looking at the shore.
Right.
You're looking at what's further out there. You're looking at contamination that may come from an accident that happened 5 years prior. Yeah. That's just now making it to our shores, and that affects fish, food, everything that goes on in that bay. As a community member, how do we keep that bay clean and work with you?
Yeah, so I see kind of two distinct pathways to getting engaged with CHB and protecting our environment. You know, you can volunteer and help us mark storm drains. So if you didn't know, if it hits the ground, it hits the sound. So
yes.
Anything that goes down those storm drains is going to end up in Commencement Bay. So you can help us mark storm drains to help educate our neighbors about what's allowed and what's not. You can do your own work to make sure that you're not contributing. So pick up after your dog when you go on a walk, wash your car in grass rather than on pavement. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do personally. But on a bigger scale, you can join us in some of our campaign work, our policy work, and you know, be an advocate for what you want to see in your community to help to make sure that it's thriving.
That's right. As Councilmember Joe Bushnell just said, be the change you want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
You launched something called, or CHB did, called Tacoma Green New Deal. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So the Tacoma Green New Deal is a policy platform that's going to help us tackle two big issues at the same time. So it's going to help us tackle climate change and also the vitality of our community. So we can reach our climate change goals, our decarbonization goals, by creating the jobs that people need. So we can make this transition away from fossil fuels and towards a cleaner future if we're creating the space for jobs in electrification, decarbonization, construction of sustainable, affordable housing, increasing our urban tree canopy. These are all things that are going to create jobs and also help us reach our climate change goals. So it's killing two birds with one stone.
Erin, I'm going to pull out just that one piece about the tree canopy because this is fascinating to me. And I always think if I didn't know this, I know there's got to be a lot of people who didn't know it also. Tell us about the tree canopy and how that affects our environment and also how it helps jobs, because you think a tree canopy and a job, what's the connection?
Yeah. So tree canopy is really important, especially as our Earth is heating up.
Do tell.
You know, if you don't have that tree canopy, you're much more susceptible to having like an urban heat island. So areas that do not have a lot of trees are degrees hotter than nearby areas that do have a, you know, more of a tree canopy.
Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington or places in Tacoma.
Yeah.
So the South Tacoma, East Side, places that don't have as many trees get a lot hotter. And that's really dangerous for people when it gets so hot in the summer. And so we envision, you know, creating kind of like a tree corps, like a crew of people that can go around and start upping our urban tree canopy.
I love that. Boy, and boy, if we didn't experience that, or if we don't now after hearing this go, oh, that's what happened last week. That's why it was so hot in my front yard.
Yeah.
Last year I cut a tree down, or we had to get rid of a tree, and now look at the lawn, look how hot it is on my roof.
Yeah.
All of that is so important. Let's talk about, in addition to tree canopies, the Tacoma tide flats. Tide flats are, I mean, we drive by them every day. I'm sure we each have our own thing we look at, but sometimes I think that we don't understand the evolution of those tide flats. So tell us what we need to know in terms of keeping those healthy.
Sure. So, yeah, the Tacoma Tide Flats is a really unique, special place. It's, you know, holds the economic engine of Pierce County with the Port of Tacoma and all the operations that happen there. It's still a functioning estuary to the Puyallup River. It's also the current historical homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians and other Coast Salish tribes. So there's a lot of things going on that we need to consider when we're planning, making decisions in the tide flats. And what's happening right now for how we're making those decisions, it's called the Tide Flats Sub-Area Plan. And it's really a visioning process for what kind of regulations we want to see, infrastructure we want to prioritize or incentivize, you know, how we're going to transition from, you know, kind of some of the heavy polluting industry that we have now to being more proactive and forward thinking in the types of industries that we recruit.
Yes.
So that's the process that's happening right now. And I serve on the technical advisory group for that planning process. So we're advocating, you know, to make sure that that plan is really forward thinking and getting us to the future that we want to see.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in Tacoma, so I can remember, Erin, when our summers were 70, 75 degrees, didn't get sunny until August. and then it just, it was these beautiful, gentle summers. I can't ever remember heat over 80 degrees in the city of Tacoma. And I can remember what the tide flats looked like. I can remember what they smelled like. All of that. So all of that to say, all of it continues to change, and we have to be a steward of that change. Speaking of that, you have something called the Stand for Our Sound Awards. And those are people who walk that, who do it. Tell us about those awards.
Yeah, so the Stand for Our Sound event is an award ceremony and a fundraiser that we're going to hold this fall. And the awards are going to people that have really dedicated their lives or, you know, significant amount of time to protecting our environment or public health. And this year we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to crowdsource nominations. So if you know somebody that, you know, is really a hero in environmental or public health here in Tacoma or Pierce County, keep that in mind. We're going to launch the nomination process soon. So keep an eye out on our social media and our newsletter for that.
I love that. Okay, so we're coming into the fall. You mentioned that word. Just the other day I felt kind of that fall kick in the air. I was like, wow, this sunshine feels like fall sunshine.
Yeah.
So what else is on the horizon that we need to be aware of as we start to look at closing out, can't believe I'm saying that, 2022?
Yeah, that Tide Flat sub-area plan, that's going to be going on for a while. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to engage in that. Kind of something that will help is we're going to be hiring another position.
Ooh, let's hear about that.
So we're going to be hiring a community organizer, and the person in that role is going to help us. They're going to be a liaison essentially between CHB and the community, and make sure that our work is accessible to the public, and make sure that folks can engage with us and we can also learn from them. So again, that announcement will be coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Oh, I love that. Erin, it is so great to have you on the comfy couch, you and the rest of your team that we couldn't fit on there. But to say thank you for all that you do. You know, you live here in Tacoma. When you walk or down the waterfront, or when you walk into the Safeway on 38th, there are lots of things that you look at because you work and live here. And because of that, it makes our city a better city, and it also makes our community have a healthy base. So thank you, for all that you do 24/7. And I would love to have you back on with some of those winners from that South Sound Award. So we can talk about what makes them tick, what makes them dedicate and volunteer their time to an event or to a beautiful bay that we have to make sure is going to be here for hundreds of years to come. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
My pleasure. When we come back, we'll have Tacoma Rescue Mission in the house for our final fabulous segment. You don't want to miss that. We'll be right back.